Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Today, I have joining me Greg Coonley of Centerfield Media. Greg, welcome to Sales Lead Dog.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Great to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you as well. It's one of the best things about this job doing the podcast. I get to meet people from all over the country. Otherwise, I would never meet. So I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Greg, tell me about your current role and Centerfield Media.
Sure. So I'm the Vice President of Sales for the Business Services Division of Centerfield Media. I actually come from an acquisition by Centerfield Media just about 15 months ago, where Centerfield purchased business.com, businessnewsdaily.com, and BuyerZone to bolster their efforts, both from an SEO perspective and just from an overall reach perspective on the B2B side. So I've really been working on those domains for about 6.5 years now, business.com and Business News Daily. Both of those sites are geared towards small businesses and decision makers and owners who are looking to make purchasing decisions, either to help start or grow. So that could be anything from accounting to payroll, business phone systems. We even have categories for maybe less common types of things like forklifts and skid steer loaders.
Right.
But essentially, our core focus is that B2B market, and our content is organized through articles, but really category reviews and rankings. So we rank very well organically for key terms like accounting reviews or payroll reviews, even brand specific terms. And when business owners or decision makers Google something that they need for their business, oftentimes will show up on page one. From there, the user is taken to content that helps them make that decision, what to look for. Again, in the example of an accounting software, is there a specific vendor that is going to work well for their industry, be it a restaurant or retail, construction, and so forth. And then we have a ton of other ancillary content as well that speaks to small business at large. What's changing with the pandemic, trends for 2022, shopping guides, things like that. So really kind of a one-stop shop for those business owners to understand what their options are and how they can leverage software and services to help grow their bottom line.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And such, for me as an entrepreneur, long-term entrepreneur, that's it's such a different world from when I started doing this in my early 20s, where the best you could do is go to a bookstore and buy a book and hope it helped you. Now there's such a wealth of information out on the internet. It's frankly, it's overwhelming. And so to have resources like that, it's huge. It's such a huge benefit.
Yeah, it really is. We've got a full editorial team with several members of that team who have been working on their specific categories for a decade plus. I think of Chad Brooks on our team has been doing business phones for 15, maybe 20 years now. So we've seen the evolution of, the business phone hardware to now unified communications and video, all of the different brands that have come and gone or rebranded or acquired each other. So there really has been an evolution for small businesses in general, but specific to the products and services that they need. It's an ever evolving space.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. So Greg, let's start talking about you now.
Sure.
You've had a pretty good career. What are the 3 things that have really contributed to the success you've achieved in your career?
Yeah, I think number one would be in internal relationships. It's probably, if that's one, then the others are far down the list. I would say the ability to work cross-functionally with different teams within organizations, before bringing product to market. Forget about the conversations you're having with prospects or current clients. If you don't have, the team dynamic set up to where things that you're looking for, or the support you need, or the support you need to give is there, then really it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to achieve your goals. You're not going to put forth a great product to sell and create long-lasting relationships. So I always pride myself on my ability to have strong communication with those groups internally, and make sure, that goes even beyond the functional roles that we all serve and play in our day-to-day. So, connecting people to people on a personal basis, making sure that every conversation starts off with a good morning or happy Friday, and just having that spill over into our work life and our ability to kind of collaborate and succeed. So that's by far number one.
What's number two?
Yeah, number two, I would say, and this is a struggle for me, but I think as any salesperson or sales leader, it needs to find is a certain level of organization to plan your day. We have, especially in my role in my org now, we've got thousands of customers, and as much as you want to give that white glove service and treatment to everybody, the reality is, there's that 80-20 rule, right? Where your core clients are going to make up a large percentage of your business and a large percentage of your growth opportunity. And just understanding which emails and which tasks can be, maybe put on hold for a little while, so that the more pressing and important things that need to be done can get done. And just structuring your day as much as you can in a way that you can balance those things. I mean, I think we all deal with the curveballs, the fire drills that show up throughout the course of a day or a week that you, of course, have to account for. But going into each day with a plan and understanding, who am I speaking with? When are my meetings? Have I done all of my prep work? Am I ready to go and have a conversation for maybe only 20 or 30 minutes with somebody that I might only get one shot at? And if I don't have that prep work and that organization done ahead of time, then that's unlikely to be a fruitful conversation.
Yeah. What's number three?
Yeah, I would say that number three is just making sure at the end of the day, everything that needs to be wrapped up is wrapped up. I think it sort of goes hand in hand with number two, but if you're starting a day where you haven't closed your previous day properly, you're probably spending the first 30, 60 minutes of that day just tying up loose ends and trying to get your bearings. Again, because we have such a breadth of clients in our book of business, there could be several outstanding things that, if not tied up on, are going to take away the focus from the next morning's activities that may be more important, or that may require full 100% attention. And so leaving the laptop or leaving the office, home office, with a sense that those things are tied up for the day, and that I'm starting tomorrow with the ability to focus on where the focus needs to be for those conversations, or those meetings that are planned, is certainly integral to anybody's success.
I tell you, I'm listening to you thinking like, oh man, it is so true that if you don't get those key things done by the end of the day, your next day is already, I don't want to say sabotage, but you're starting off in a hard way with that stuff hanging over you. For sure. And I go back to coaching. I coached a little bit of high school basketball in my time in Boston too. And you want to end a practice, you want to end a game, either with a conversation or with a drill, or with a point to be made that will carry over and keep the momentum going. So if you're down by 20 or up by 20 at the end of that game, you want to make sure that the last minute you have two good possessions, or you're ending on a high note. And it's no different in sales. I think if you're 80% of the way through something and you don't get that other 20% done, you're never going to have the success that you're looking for that next day. And in that team dynamic, same way. You're not going to be able to start that new practice or the preparation for the next game if you haven't fully moved on from the previous. Yeah. I love hearing how people got their start in sales because the
Sure.
answers have always been so varied. How'd you get your start?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2009 at the height of the recession, and I took a job with Northwestern Mutual selling life insurance and investments. And I would say that bar none, in best sales training a person could possibly have, the best I've ever seen from a 6-week intensive, everything from overcoming objections to phone language to different closing techniques, just very, very thorough. The problem with that start was that I was 22 years old and I was living at home, and I didn't have necessarily the conviction I needed to sit down at somebody's kitchen table and explain to them or tell them that these are the financial solutions that you should be thinking about or that you should be buying, when I was living at home, upstairs in my parents' house with no bills and no real life experience.
Yeah.
And so I had all this great sales training, but I didn't have that conviction, right? I didn't have that feeling that I was providing value, because everybody I was speaking with had already been through those life experiences that I did not have. So they had bought and sold houses. They had, married, had kids, had different financial considerations, had spoken with different financial advisors in the past. And so I didn't feel within my heart that I was providing value in those conversations. And so probably 7 or 8 months into that career, I decided that sales really wasn't for me and chose to go in a different direction. And so I got back into it. I moved to Boston, where there's a little bit more job opportunity. And I started in operations for a marketing company, really a publishing company, but in marketing for Tech Target. And I did reporting and some client outreach, and sort of grew my career through that marketing and operations side of the business, where then took another job at monster.com. And it was really at Monster that I sort of got that sales bug again. So I was invited on several key client meetings. Our sales reps felt that having another voice in the room that wasn't on the sales side was really important, which to this day I think is massive. But in these meetings, people would start turning to me after maybe 5 or 10 minutes. The salesperson would give their perfectly polished pitch with a great sales deck, but people wanted to know the numbers. They wanted to know the data. They wanted to know the quantitative analysis and what was really going on with their campaigns. And this was really at the height of when everything became trackable digitally, right? So what are my clicks doing? Are my impressions turning into clicks, and are they turning into leads and sales down funnel? What can we be doing differently with our landing page? And all of those different elements and variables. And so I felt like I left those meetings thinking I did a lot of the speaking. I did the majority of the legwork there, and yet I'm not reaping the salary and commission benefits that my counterparts are. So why not take another stab at this and move over to the sales side? And as part of a restructuring reorg, the Monster team created kind of the hunter and farmer model, where I moved right into that farmer role, kind of doing similar things, but also working on upsells and renewals. And then that kind of led to the hunter role. And then eventually, as I moved over to business.com and now Centerfield Media, into a leadership position.
Let's talk about that switch into leadership. What was behind that for you, the core motivation to seek a leadership role?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that's innate. I think, again, having coached baseball and basketball, there's a level of similarity that comes with both that profession and being doing something as a hobby in your spare time, and just getting the satisfaction. I wasn't a great athlete. I played on my high school teams, but I certainly by no means was the best player. But I felt a lot more pride and a lot more enjoyment came out of the coaching aspect and leading others to be successful and kind of passing on some of the knowledge that I had learned and retained, and helping our teams be able to gel together, or helping individuals develop their skills. And so on the work side, on the professional side, that's sort of just translated. And I had in my mind for a while that leadership was something I eventually aspired to. And the transition was not really something that I asked for, but something more so that maybe I was recognized for, and an opportunity that I took on wholeheartedly. But I think, in the back of my mind, whether it be in sales or anything else, I always aspired to have some level of or position of leadership.
What was the best part about that transition for you, shifting from salesperson to sales leader?
Yeah, I think the obvious comp bump and all that is great, right? And we all want to be able to provide and do the things that we'd like to do outside of work, but really it was the ability to gain more access to the decisions and the insight that was going into what made the business. So working with leaders across functions to not just meet with them on getting the operational work done or the day-to-day stuff, but really driving strategy and understanding, the key decisions that can be made that are 6-7 figure decisions that, take a lot of teamwork and collaboration to be able to come to consensus. And those had previously been above my pay grade. I sort of, took direction and went out and sold my book and did what I needed to do. But to be able to actually drive that strategy and to be in those conversations, I think was probably the highlight of that initial transition.
What was the hardest part of making that shift?
Yeah, I think it's always challenging when you get into leadership, especially for me, because being the first time, I'm coming from essentially a group of peers into an elevated role. And so, on a peer level, right, you have your other sales reps that you're working with, and then now all of a sudden the dynamic has changed. So, interpersonally, I think there's some adjustments to be made there. But I think probably the thing that stands out is and I'm sure this is referenced a ton, but sort of that loss of control, right? Where you're responsible now for an overall team number or a bigger number even, that you don't necessarily have as much say over. You do in driving the strategy for sure, but it still needs to be delivered on those sales calls. And so it took a little while for me to understand that I don't need to be involved in every conversation. I can delegate, I can relax a little bit without having to stress over for each individual account and making sure that things were going the way that I had hoped that they would go, because in aggregate, if we're doing the right things as a team and we're driving the right strategy, then those things should be able to take care of themselves.
You mentioned about not, figuring out you didn't have to get that involved. That's a common theme when I talk about this with sales leaders. Was that something you figured out fairly easily, or did you have to learn it the hard way?
Yeah, I would say somewhere in between. I first of all, I had a lot of faith in working with the people who are now on my team. I knew their level of experience. I knew their aptitude and what they were able to do on the phone and through client conversations and prospect conversations. So that wasn't an issue for me at all. More so is on the issue of, are we selling the right thing? Are we talking to the right person? Are we doing the things to set up those conversations to give us the best chance for success? And I think it was a little bit of trial and error, right? I of course wanted to be involved in the conversations with a lot of the relationships that I had helped to grow or build. But at the end of the day, our team has been and was at the time full of awesome sales reps in their own right, and they were more than capable of taking that on. So I learned that pretty quickly. There's probably the feeling, I'm sure, from some of the team members that maybe I was a little bit over involved, but I needed to find that balance for myself, and I don't think that there's necessarily the perfect playbook for doing that without a little bit of trial and error.
And you have to find that middle spot, like you said, that balance. And the only way you find that is to go one way or the other too far. And then you realize, I need to, back off, or I need to engage more, one or the other.
Yeah, and there's definitely key times too. I mean, just thinking about certain prospects who are at maybe a VP level, or they're at an executive level, that they may only want to speak to somebody who's a peer, right? And I'm not one for titles at all, but sometimes it does help where, one of our reps would have trouble getting through to a client contact or a prospect contact at a certain company, and all it took was, hey, I'm bringing on our VP, and all of a sudden that helps with the conversation, or win the conversation. So instances like that where it may make sense to become more involved, certainly comfortable with that. But as far as majority of the relationships go and the conversations go, it's really something that I can take myself out of and provide the guidance and the strategy where needed.
How do you leverage the losses as a learning opportunity?
Yeah, losses are always tough. I think being sort of from that analytical background, one of the things that helps keep perspective is understanding that it's really a numbers game. If you understand, your close rates and your average order sizes and those metrics that build your business and get you to where your goals need to be, that individual conversation that falls through, or something that you had as 90% confidence that doesn't get inked, it's always going to be disappointing. But in the grand scheme of things, if you can keep that as just being one statistic as an overall part of the model, and think of it almost as a faceless number, it becomes a lot easier of a pill to swallow. The other thing that I think was a little bit challenging too, going back even to the beginning of my sales career and dealing with rejection, was taking things personally. And for any new rep out there, for any rep who still struggles with that's been doing it for a long time, it's absolutely not personal. Those decisions are made on a ton of different levels, whether it be because you don't have the right product, or it's just not the right fit. You may not be speaking to the person who has the budget for which you're really targeting. So it's not you, it's just not a fit, and that's okay. And for every 2 or 3 that aren't a fit, maybe there's 2 or 3 that are. And so being able to bounce back quickly and not take it to heart is certainly a skill that comes with time, but it is very, I think, important in my mind.
Now, for those of you listening, you can't see what's on the wall behind Greg, but I want to dive into this. He's got some pretty interesting items up on his wall. Can you talk about, I'll spill the beans here. He's got some flags from some pretty famous golf courses up on his wall. Do you leverage golf as part of your sales process?
Not as much now. With the pandemic, of course, that's waned, but even before that, because at Centerfield and previous at business.com, we had so many clients, and we were, spread so thin that in-person visits and get-togethers weren't as common. In the past with Monster, absolutely something that we leveraged a lot at either shows or just going directly to clients and playing golf or having dinner. So I'm a 5 handicap, which is solid. There's
That's pretty solid.
Yeah, there's far better out there, but the flags behind me, Pinehurst, Innisbrook, I think I have Bethpage Black there, and Bay Hill, which I went to last year. I try to get a flag from every golf course that hosts a regular PGA tournament or a major. So I'm trying to grow my collection as much as I can, adding a flag or 2 each year, but hopefully we'll be able to fill this entire room up when it's all said and done.
Do you have a crazy story from when you were out with a client on a golf course?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, it runs the gamut. You'll play golf with clients and prospects that are much better than you, and then you'll play golf with people who have no business being on a golf course, or maybe not even a driving range for that matter. Where you kind of have to grin and bear it, right? There's no playing through. There's no leaving after 9 holes because I don't feel great. It's 5 hours of torture, but you're doing that to build the relationship, right? So nothing stands out. I don't think anybody fell in a lake or a pond or
Nobody
You know,
threw their golf clubs into the pond. Yeah.
nothing too bad, but I love it as a tool. I think, the more you can create that one-on-one
Oh yeah.
interaction, outside the office, outside of PowerPoint, outside of Zoom, I'm always an advocate for that. I think it's been a great tool for me to help attract and win business in the past. And
Yeah.
I played a little bit in high school and college, and so I didn't have to learn as part of being the sales person.
Yeah.
It just was something that I already had in the tool belt. So yeah, anytime I'm traveling, if I can, I'll try to stay an extra day and play a famous course if it's available. But absolutely love meeting people on the golf course.
One of the things I love about that is you really get to see who they really are. Because when you start golf, there's no way you can fake it for 4 hours or more, especially if, the game's not going that well. You're really going to see who that person is.
For sure. And you also don't necessarily have to talk business
No.
until afterwards and you're grabbing a drink, or
Yeah.
you could feel out the conversation, and maybe on the second hole, they start asking you business questions. It
Yeah.
really gives you a length of time and a medium to be able to feel things out, right? And to get to
Yeah.
know the person that you're attempting to work with, or that you're trying to grow with. And if they don't want to talk at all and want to keep it just light and have fun, then it's simply just building rapport. And if it
Yep.
Does turn to business, you're ready to do that as well. But it's just more relaxed. It's a great way to sort of discuss those topics over the course of 5 hours on a nice setting, rather than being jammed up in a conference room and having to stick to the script.
Do you try to teach that kind of a cadence to your younger sales team? I know when you're first starting in sales, everyone wants to be very aggressive and close those deals, but that can shoot you in the foot more often than not. And so how do you teach that level of patience and rapport building and more of a natural flow to sales?
Yeah, I think rather than doing it explicitly, probably a little bit more by example when we're on calls together. LinkedIn is a great tool. Whether I can find a commonality with the college or the area that somebody's from, or where they've worked before, I always want to start there. If I have to give up 10 minutes of a 30-minute meeting to put a face to the name and really dive into who they are, then I'm always willing to make that sacrifice. For me, selfishly, it just makes that person easier to remember and help with the mental Rolodex. But B, hopefully it makes me stand out as a person who they can remember and who that they built some level of rapport with, and that they can trust and want to speak to again. But I would say, as far as teaching that or mandating that, it's more of kind of, here's my style, and if you like it and it feels natural to you, then it's something to adopt. But regardless, I think feeling people out and understanding how they tick is the psychology is really important. So it starts as simple as, what is their title, right? So if you have the associate marketing manager, they're going to be an influencer. They're going to be rolling it up to somebody else. So make sure that the collateral that you leave behind is easily digestible for their boss or their boss's boss. Versus a C-level person that might not have a lot of time. You want to get right to the conversation. Usually, within, for me, 2-3 minutes, if a person is open to kind of chatting and just building that rapport, if they want to get right down to it. And I think being able to match that style as sort of a chameleon is really important. So if somebody's direct and within 30 seconds they're asking about pricing, I'm going to be direct in my responses. But vice versa, if somebody is open to talking a little bit more, or opening up about themselves or their past experiences, or a common coworker that we may have had, I'm all for that as well.
CRM, do you love it or do you hate it?
Love-hate relationship.
Number one answer.
yeah, love-hate relationship. I think CRM is necessary, right? Of course, there's got to be a central place for all that information to live. I think my perspective is a bit unique in that our company has been rebranded or acquired about 3 or 4 times since I started. And so our CRM has been a melting pot of several different groups or lists of clients and prospects and contacts. So there's been a lot of duplication and cleanup work that has to have been done there over time, which I think we're in a great place now. But yeah, I mean, I think it is what you make of it. So if you're diligent about call notes, which admittedly I'm not, I need to get better at that for myself, and something that I impress upon with my team too. But the tools are there. I mean, I think, from a reporting standpoint, understanding pipeline, understanding the key metrics behind close rates and average sales cycle. If you put in the data, it'll give you back the data as information that you can really use as a key tool to guide your process decision making. And so as much as I sometimes struggle or will curse out the CRM for little things or bugs or logic that's built in that I may not have all the answers to, it's certainly a tool that I lean on a ton to be able to keep everything organized and to drive the sales process forward.
Other than the issue you mentioned about the data, and the mainly driven through the acquisitions, what's the biggest struggle that you've experienced with CRM over your career?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we have a lot of custom solutions at Centerfield. So when we were at business.com operating just on the B2B side, we had sales qualified leads, marketing qualified leads, and click traffic that we could sell. And so everything that we did fell under one of those buckets. And at Centerfield, where we're able to basically support marketing and customer acquisition from A to Z, where we have a sales center that actually sells both B2C and B2B services, there are a lot more custom types of projects and solutions that we can offer to the market. And so sometimes when you have that level of customization, those programs don't necessarily fit into the predefined selects or options that a CRM has. And so inputting, it can be a challenge for one. I'm not really sure maybe necessarily if this is going to be a lead opportunity or a full funnel opportunity or sponsorship. But on the backside of that is pulling reporting and understanding where is my pipeline and what product is it aligned to. Sometimes that's not always as clean as maybe it would be in the past. So it really it takes patience for sure, and collaboration. We have one of the best Salesforce administrators I've ever worked with, easily the best, and just floating ideas out there. What if we change this field, or what if we added this logic to be able to help make those headaches go away as much as possible. But I don't think any business has a perfect process for how they utilize their CRM. I think it's an evolving discussion as products get developed, as targets change, as M&As happen. So I'm happy. There's days and there's moments where I'm not thrilled with what's going on, but certainly it's a necessary evil.
Yeah, I agree. We're coming up on our time here on Sales Lead Dog. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Greg. If people want to reach out, connect with you, they want to learn more about Centerfield Media, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. I would say either email G Coonley, COONLEY @business.com, or just on LinkedIn. Send me a LinkedIn message. Be happy to respond, reach out, and set up some time to have a conversation. But I would say email or LinkedIn would be great.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on Sales Lead Dog.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Christopher.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM, delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.